live. Hey, you guys, everyone, now that we are all here, welcome to Wellness Wednesdays with CJ. It's me, Christian Jackson, your licensed mental health and wellness professional homegirl, here with you on a lovely Wednesday here, May 12th, 2021. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm here. I don't need a month to really talk about mental health because that is my jam, right? I'm a licensed therapist here in South Carolina, author and speaker. I love to do trauma work. It's one of the things that I'm well trained in. I own a private practice here in town called Yana Counseling Services. Shout out to us here, our virtual practice now. And with this new brand here, Couch with Christian, you'll find me doing work really with my daddy issues movement. I've already mentioned it, and I guess as people are coming in, for those of you who do not know who I am, I wrote Daddy Issues, How to Detangle from the Sins of Our Fathers. Just a quick blurb about this, if I can make this succinct, and also honor people who don't know me and not like rush through it just because. These are the books that I wrote. This is a manual, women, for ladies. A woman wrote this for women, although I want to point out that men have read my books too and also found it really helpful. So, Daddy Issues is a book that I wrote out of really being triggered and treating women who had daddy issues, right? Other women who were going through depression and insecurity issues, identity issues, abandonment and rejection. I was being triggered from my own daddy issues because the gag is, folks, that we are shaped and morphed into who we are in our formative years by our village, right? And so we have to look back at who actually poured into us during those times. Now, daddy issues is the door that I'm taking. Part of it is because I had to work through some of my own stuff. Like I said, I'd be in session with women and I'd be triggered, but I can't necessarily say, yeah, me too, sis. This is your session. I couldn't do that. So I was going to therapy and really working through a lot of the pain and turmoil, emotional trauma, based on what I had gone through with my father. So this is what therapy did for me. I got a book out of it. And really, as I was doing a lot of the work in therapy and with women who are actually in treatment, I'm already doing these things that I'm offering to you in this book individually with women, right? And so the book is going to outline what daddy issues means. So I'm giving you a whole diagnosis, a whole spiel, so that we can have a framework. What does daddy issues even look like? I give you a list of symptoms. If you follow me on Instagram, I posted the diagnosis and the diagnostic criteria for daddy issues earlier this week. The really cool thing is, after doing the Daddy Issues Healing Circle Group 2, because I have a live group where I lead you through the workbook that goes with the book. And we met for the second time this past Monday on the 10th of May. And it was really powerful because every group it's not a cookie cutter situation. And so out of the first group, I said, hey, you know what? I feel confirmation and a tug to address things outside of the original diagnosis. So I may or may not share that with y'all at some point. I might give you a little sneak peek, but we got to talk about daddy issues and grief. How does not having my dad here because he's passed away hurt me? How has that affected me? How does that look in my relationships? How does that affect me and who I think I am? Maybe my identity issues were really so tightly interwoven with my daddy who was alive at some point that it does affect me that he's gone. So I had to talk about daddy issues and grief and made up a whole thing based on that, as well as abuse. At the end of my book, Daddy Issues, How to Detangle from the Sins of Our Fathers, what I'm doing is also writing a letter to women who were sexually assaulted by their fathers. I've met women who have unfortunately experienced that type of trauma and then their father is dead. So there's a lot going on with how we are actually handling who we are and how we actually operate in relationships based on the way that we have relationships with our fathers. So daddy issues is a huge thing. Again, it's so stigmatized, just like mental health, period. But women with daddy issues, you can comment below or when you watch the replay, what have you heard about women with daddy issues? What does that look like? And so in the book, I'm giving you a chance to really outline and identify daddy issues in marriage and dating, motherhood, at work. What does that look like? We're talking about attachment issues. I'm really painting the picture of what women with daddy issues looks like in the book and in between each chapter. And it's also expounded upon here in the workbook. I'm giving you a chance to reflect on what you read about on the chapter before. So that's why the book is so powerful. It's probably about a year, I say, maybe 1.5 years worth of work in treatment, all in one book. And so it's really powerful. It's so powerful. It's probably about a year, I say, maybe a year and a half worth of work in treatment, all in one book. And so it's really powerful. It's so powerful. It's probably about a year, I say, maybe a year and a half worth of work in treatment, all for less than $60. And so this is what you have going on. But again, what you really want to do, if you want to enhance your experience in dealing with daddy issues, you can join the Daddy Issues Healing Circle. And I can let you know more information at the end about how to do so. It's going well, and I'm excited. They actually voted over this week to maybe to extend it from 90 minutes to 2 hours, because we be getting up in that thing. We get down into the nitty gritty of mental health when it comes to daddy issues. So we decided we need more time, and we don't want to feel rushed while we're healing. So that is who I am, authoress of Daddy Issues, and facilitator of the Daddy Issues Healing Circle, which again, I'll be sharing some testimonials soon. It's going really well. So what I like to do here on Wellness Wednesdays is use my platform to talk about mental health, right? Whatever that thing may look like, and keep in mind how that may look for women with daddy issues. They call me the expert, right? So I wanted to talk about what we were starting to discuss last week. Last week, we talked about the 10 thinking errors, the common thinking errors that happen when we are in our heads and our mind is ruminating, right? We have all this anxiety, we have all these depression thoughts that really kind of keep us unmotivated, really beating up on ourselves. We all fall into a loop. So normally when I'm with my clients, and again, I ain't even charging y'all for this, I'm sharing this really major key as to how we can identify and take charge, intentionally take charge of what our thoughts are doing, what they are actually looking like, and how that's affecting our lives, right? So last week we talked about, I'm basing this off of an article that I share with my clients that I will tag below on this video, and I'll go back and tag on the last one, from Psychology Today. So what we talked about, thinking error means those barriers that help us really take charge and be free of what we have going on in our mind. So last week we talked about all or nothing, or black and white thinking, where we think either I am a great person because I have a college degree, or I'm nothing, right? You don't give yourself a chance or any grace to live in the gray area. We talked about overgeneralizing, where you meet someone and have possibly one experience and you just assign that label to everyone else, which we're actually going to get into something similar about that tonight. Are you catastrophizing, meaning we blow things out of proportion? Your day started off with you stubbing your toe, and now your whole day is just wrecked, right? That's overgeneralizing. Again, assigning your one experience to maybe your entire day. What does that even look like, and why are we doing that to ourselves? We're filtering out the positive. That's something else we talked about last week, where we don't even stop to think about what we're grateful for. And one of the things that we're doing in the Daddy Issues Healing Circle, part of their assignment ongoingly, they have a welcome packet, and I sent all of them various things. I actually have one of them beside me here, a grounding rock, something, this is, I think, rose quartz, and it has a thumbprint in it. It helps you ground yourself. One of the other things I gave them was a glass mason jar, so that they can avoid filtering out the positive and really staying aware and cognizant of being mindful in the present with what they're thankful for. That's one of the ways that we can address that particular thinking error. Mind reading was another one we went over last week, and that is where we just make assumptions, and we just assume because someone is looking at us a certain way, because my daddy never showed up when I was little and he consistently showed me that's how relationships look, that must be how all men are. That must be how relationships are, right? So you're seeing, just a quick review, those are the first 5. I didn't want to rush through them all last week and give you all 10. So today we're going to start with the 6th one. And if you're watching on YouTube and you're looking at me on the Facebook page, my at Couch with Christian Facebook page, you'll see below the ticker that will show you the 6th thinking error is called emotional reasoning. How many times have you guys made decisions out of your feelings? You might have heard people say, I mean, you're in your feelings about this thing, and that's particularly true for a lot of people. We have 2 hemispheres of our brain. If you're really right brained, where the limbic system lives, where our brain processes emotions, that's what the limbic system is, then you're likely not going to think out of your left side of your brain, which is very logical. It kind of makes sense. It's methodical, right? Each piece has pros and cons if it acts on one side by itself. What we do in therapy is try to get both sides of the brain working together, because we need reason and we need to kind of be emotional about things and empathize with ourselves and others in order to kind of make a good, well-rounded, well-informed decision. If I'm acting out of my feelings and I say, you know what, I am hurt because my daddy left me. He left me because he passed away, and he didn't leave me with the skill set I thought I needed him to leave me with, then I'm just going to make these decisions out of my pain. I'm just going to go ahead and go with the next one, with the next job. Who cares? What does it matter? My dad's gone anyway. Are you stuck in that place in your grief? So with women with daddy issues, this could look like a lot of different things for either one of us. It's all subjective, right? But that's an example of how we're acting out of our feelings, not necessarily considering the logic or reason behind things. Some people like to say, I'm moving here because it feels good. It doesn't have to make sense, which, if that's your jam, please go with it. But I would like to think that someone is a little bit more well rounded and kind of thinking again with both parts of your brain. You're not born with the whole brain, not to use the whole thing, right? So, are we acting out of our feelings? Here, I want to pause and kind of talk about trauma, right? Our trauma responses are really reactive. We're not necessarily being proactive about how we're taking care of ourselves, especially if we are survivors of trauma, right? And so emotional reasoning is a biggie here because for someone who may have a full blown diagnosis of PTSD or the PTSD symptoms, what we're looking at is I'm acting out of fear, right? So someone is really super anxious, really wound up, hyper vigilant, meaning they're taking note of every exit, every person that's in their area, making sure that they're safe, right? Because there's an element of fear that's driving decisions. And so if we are doing that, the emotional reasoning piece and really any of these thinking errors, what I want you to keep in mind is there's a reason why these thinking errors develop, right? Because they are coming out of likely a trauma response or at least an experience that was significant enough to shape the way you want to interact in a certain situation. So at some point, the way that we think about things, these errors that we're talking about, they served us to an extent. But when we talk about the extreme piece of it, right, we got to try to download and give ourselves options as to how to handle different situations. So we call them errors because after a while, they're outdated, the way that we're thinking. Labeling is the second one we're going to talk about tonight. That's another really easy one. It's kind of like I mentioned earlier last week and then reviewing earlier tonight, overgeneralizing. So the example in the article that I'm going to link in the comments below is maybe you made one mistake and you're labeling yourself as a complete idiot. Maybe you are a woman with daddy issues and you're ready to own up to that. And you started to realize that you have been kind of setting a standard for men that you're dating or partners that you're dating because they're not like your father. Maybe that's something you're doing out of spite or in spite of, and you labeled all partners to be this way. What does that look like for you, right? So again, you can actually see how maybe that would even overlap with emotional reasoning, right? So we can look at this as a comprehensive situation here, right? Sometimes we overlap and we have a whole bunch of thinking errors going on at the same time. So am I robbing myself of an experience because I have already set in my mind that if this person acts this way, then I can't interact with this type of person ever at all, right? So what does that look like in your life? It kind of makes me think about fortune telling, which is the third thinking error for tonight when we're talking about 10 common thinking errors. Fortune telling is exactly what it sounds like. I'm telling the truth. I'm telling the future. It's kind of like mind reading when we talked about it last week. I'm going to look at your face and assume that I know everything that you're thinking, what you're thinking of me, right? So, am I making decisions because I know that this is going to happen? I'm waking up, it's raining, it's going to be a terrible day, like it is today. If you decide it's going to be a terrible day, folks, it's going to be a terrible day. It's all about how we are perceiving our day. How exactly are you taking charge of that? If you notice that you may be driven by your emotions, fortune telling is a really big one that would be coupled with that one. For example, again, woke up, it was raining today. I'm feeling a little groggy. My day sucks. Automatically. That's it. I'm just deciding before I even leave the bed that this is going to be a wash. Literally like the rain outside. So this day is going to be terrible. Instead of shifting the perspective, which part of the work in addressing these thinking errors is challenging the self-talk that comes, the ants, the automatic negative thoughts, the ants. Did you catch that? Part of that is challenging and practicing a new perspective, right? And so instead of waking up and saying, oh, it's raining, it sucks, it's going to be wet today, we ain't got no gas because there's a shortage, think about all the flowers that are blooming, all the pollen that's washing away. Participate in some mindfulness activity. If you can find a quiet space in your home, where some of my moms and people who have a lot of people in their home, some of my clients will have to go to their car for a session, go to your car and just listen to the rain and the calm and the pitter patter of the raindrops. That's a very actually really good mindfulness activity. And so we've covered three so far. The fourth one is personalization. And this one, I'm going to tell you right now, is something I see so much. If you, for example, text a friend and this friend says, you know what, and doesn't say anything, they don't even respond. So what you say to yourself in your head is, oh, they must be mad at me. It's all about me. Not taking into consideration that since your friend got kids, she's busy, she's making dinner. She's not shady. She's had something else going on. And maybe her day has gotten away from her so far that she had every intention of texting you back, but then she got tired and went to sleep. So a lot of that fortune telling, mind reading, and it kind of leads into the personalization, where personalization, that name of that era, comes from the fact that we make it about ourselves. And I know I'm not the only one who did it. Okay. So if my daddy left me, it must be because of me. Not taking into account that this man probably has some type of trauma or lack of skill set to even handle being a father. Maybe there's a whole different story or a trauma response that he is actually giving into that is the reason for him leaving you. Women with daddy issues have that issue all the time. That's where the performance comes from and the people pleasing. And that's a whole different video. I definitely want to give y'all that at some point. But if your father left for whatever reason, and for some reason you have it in your head that it's your fault that your father left, one of the things that we have to work through in sessions with women with daddy issues is that it's not your fault. That is a narrative and a mantra that we talk about when I'm doing trauma work. It's not your fault. Taking that shame off of yourself and stop blaming yourself and guilting yourself into believing you've done something bad and it's about you and that's why your father left, right? So we're looking at that as well as the unreal ideal. That is a fifth and final thinking error we're talking about tonight. But the 10th, after 2 weeks of doing this Wellness Wednesday, is about the 10 thinking errors that will really, what this article says, crush your mental strength, right? It's really important for us to know the thieves of the positive experiences that we could be having. And this last one, the unreal ideal, is what we're calling it here for per this article, is comparison, y'all. We are on our timelines all day. We are on our phones all day, and we see people that we don't even know who are giving the highlights of their life on Instagram and Facebook and the Twitters and all the things, having yacht life, not wearing masks and living it up during the corona and all these things. And we're wondering why we are home and our life sucks and they must be having the best time or have the best friends and all the money and all the cars and all the things. The unreal ideal is thinking about what your life looks like compared to someone who's presenting an ideal life that's probably not even real. That's one example of probably generalizing or labeling all these assumptions we make about other people's lives. And that is just one of those things that we do that is very subtly a way to avoid what we have going on ourselves, right? So avoidance is actually one of the symptoms of PTSD. For whatever reason, if I think and sit with myself, that means that something may be wrong. I have to think about all the stuff that sucks. Avoidance is a real thing. It's a protective factor. Again, all these things have served us at some point in some capacity when we are actually talking about the trauma piece, but it is not healthy. Nothing that is done in any kind of excess is healthy at all. So the 10 common thinking errors that we've gone over all week, well, today and last Wednesday, I'm going to link the article, whether you're watching here on Instagram, whether you're watching at Couch with Christian on Facebook or on my YouTube channel. I'll make sure that you guys get this article because it gives a really good breakdown, examples of what these thinking errors are. Again, we call these things errors because they are barriers to the experiences that we could be having daily. I was having that conversation earlier, and we really had to dig down deep about why someone is actually choosing to be angry. REBT, Albert Ellis, is one of the methods of therapy that I use. It's like cognitive behavioral therapy. And he has the ABC triangle that I introduce to all of my clients. And that really just talks about the relationship between a trigger, your thoughts, and then how you feel. We basically talk ourselves into the way we feel. That's what these common thinking errors are. We spend a lot of time at the top of the triangle where we're talking about your beliefs. Not just your thoughts, but when we're doing therapy, getting down to those beliefs, right? But Albert Ellis says that if you're mad, it's your fault. Sis, sir, they, is your fault because you have the perspective, which to me, if we reframe that and talk about it, we have the power. where we're talking about what we want to do for ourselves and how we want to experience our days. And so the 10 common thinking errors, when I do this in therapy, then we outline it. We talk about what our top two or three are. And then we really sit down, and I have a whole worksheet that I use from a certain curriculum that I use for trauma therapy to challenge each one of these thoughts. And so if that's something that you think you may want to see, comment below, send me a DM, let me know, because of course, all this is about giving access to things that you may not have thought about because maybe you don't want to go to therapy just yet. You don't think you're ready. You can't afford it. Wellness Wednesdays is the place to get your mental health fix, if you will, right? So again, it's May. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. What small thing can you do for yourself to start addressing this 10 thinking errors, right? This stinking thinking. That's what some people call it too, right? How are you going to address your ants, your automatic negative thoughts? Comment below with some tips. What have you done over the last week after maybe watching the first 5 thinking errors to address challenging those lies, which is what they are, as barriers to your mental health? Again, I am Christian Jackson, your licensed mental health and wellness professional homegirl and daddy issues expert, author of Daddy Issues, How to Detangle from the Sins of Our Fathers. You can find them on my website, these books that is, which is scrolling at the bottom of the screen here on Facebook and on YouTube. It's the link in my bio and on my Instagram page at Couch with Christian. I would recommend you buy both so that you are equipped and fully ready to kind of process all the different activities and self-reflection questions and thought-provoking content as you are working your way through the book. There are stories in here that illustrate what daddy issues are. I know that you'll relate to one of them to some extent. And the other part about this is if you have the books, you're ready for the Daddy Issues Healing Circle. Again, I'm playing with the dates, trying to figure out where I want to start, when I want to start the next healing circle. I have 6 women in there currently. We meet every week for an hour and a half every Monday. We interact with one another in our Facebook group live throughout the week so that we have a chance to interact in between groups. Things have been going great so far. I'm going to share some raw testimonials. Hopefully, I'll get that for you in the next couple of weeks so you can make your decision. But if you would like to apply for the Daddy Issues Healing Circle, applications are pretty much always open. I'll just start a waiting list and we talk about why you would want to join, how you can join, get to know me, catch my vibes. And I'd be happy to do that for you. So without further ado, I'm going to say goodnight to you guys. Thank you guys for showing up live. Comment afterwards. Send me a DM. Comment on the replay. Watch it. Share it. I appreciate your support so far. Y'all have a great night.